Good morning everyone. Today we discuss about the vertebral joints, also called as the intervertebral joints. Adjacent vertebra of the vertebral column are connected to each other at the three joints. There is a median joint between the vertebral bodies and two joints right and left between the adjacent articular processes, superior and inferior articular processes. The joint between the articular processes are plain synovial joints, also called as zygapophyseal joints. Also called as a zygapophyseal joint between the adjacent superior and inferior articular processes of the adjacent vertebra of the vertebral column. They permit the plain type of synovial joints. It permits the gliding movements. Now, zygapophyseal joints of the thoracic vertebrae are directed vertically oriented. So this limits the flexion and extension, but facilitates the rotation. The rotation is greatly facilitated because the articular processes of thoracic vertebra are set on an arc. Now, ligaments of the zygapophyseal joint or facet joints are the joint capsule which enclose the articular surfaces. And the accessory ligaments are the ligamentum flava that is present between the lamina of the adjacent vertebrae. Also are the supraspinous ligament, infraspinous ligament, and intertragus ligament that we discussed in the later part of this topic. Now, movements of the flexion and extension are best permitted in the cervical and lumbar region of the vertebral column, while rotatory movements are best seen in the thoracic region. Now, another joint that is median intervertebral joints that is present between the moving adjacent vertebra. That is the secondary cartilaginous joint. Now, between the adjacent vertebra, body of the adjacent vertebra, there is a thin layer of the hyaline cartilage, and in between this body of adjacent vertebra, there is a presence of intervertebral disc. Intervertebral disc is made up of fibrocartilage. Now, this fibrocartilage disc which intervene between the body of adjacent vertebra and they bind them together. Now, shape of the articular disc corresponding with that of the vertebral bodies between which they are placed. Now, thickness of the disc varies in different region of the vertebral column and also in the different parts of the same disc. In case of cervical and lumbar region, the discs are thicker in front aspect compared to behind, while in case of thoracic region, they are of uniform thickness. While the discs are thinnest in case of upper thoracic region and thickest in case of lumbar region. Now, what is the contribution in the total length of the vertebral column by the articular disc? So, this intervertebral disc contribute about 1/5 of the length of the vertebral column. The contribution is greater in the cervical region and lumbar region than in the thoracic region. Now we discuss the composition of the intervertebral disc. So it is made up of two parts. The nucleus pulposus present in the central part and annulus fibrosus in the peripheral part of the intervertebral disc. Now nucleus pulposus is the central part of the disc. It is soft and gelatinous at the birth. It is kept under tension and acts as a hydraulic shock absorber. With advancing age, the elasticity of the disc is much reduced. Second part is the annulus fibrosus. It is the peripheral part of the disc. It is made up of narrow outer zone of the collagen fibers and wide inner zone of the fibrocartilage. Now the fibers form the lamina and that are arranged in the form of incomplete rings, and these incomplete rings are connected by the strong fibrous bands. Now the outer collagen fiber blend with the anterior as well as posterior longitudinal ligament that is present on the anterior as well as posterior surface of the body of vertebra. Now we discuss the function of the intervertebral discs. They give shape to the vertebral column. They act as a remarkable series of shock absorber or act as a buffer. Because of their elasticity, they allow slight movement of the vertebral bodies on each other more in the cervical and lumbar region. When the slight movement at the individual discs are added together, they become the considerable. Now ligaments which connect the adjacent vertebra. Apart from the intervertebral disc and the capsule which connect the articular processes, adjacent vertebrae are connected by the several ligaments. First of all, the anterior longitudinal ligament. It passes from anterior surface of one vertebra to the another vertebra, and its upper end reaches at the basilar part of the occipital bone. Second is the posterior longitudinal ligament that is present on the posterior surface of the adjacent body of the vertebra within the vertebral canal. Now its upper end reaches the body of C2 or axis vertebra and which in continues with the membrana tectoria. Other ligaments are the interspinous ligament between the spine of the adjacent vertebra, then intertransverse ligament, then supraspinous ligament. Supraspinous ligament extends from C7 vertebra up to the sacrum. While in the upper region, or you can say in the cervical region, it is replaced by the presence of ligamentum nuchae. Then ligamentum flava. They connect the, or singular form it is called ligamentum flava. They connect the lamina of the adjacent vertebra and they are made up of elastic tissue. This one is the interspinous ligament between the adjacent spine of the vertebra. So this ligament connect the adjacent vertebra and make a stronger movement. Now clinical aspect. In case of young adults, the intervertebral discs are very strong. However, after the second decade of life, degenerative changes set in and they result in the weakness of the annulus fibrosus. The annulus fibrosus, it becomes weak in case of second decade of life. And when such type of disease is subjected to strain, the annulus fibrosus may rupture and which leads to the prolapse of the nucleus pulposus. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, these are the different location of the prolapse of the nucleus pulposus. Such type of condition is called the disc prolapse, or we can say disc herniation. So it is more common in the second position, that is the posterolateral aspect. It may be central or posteriormost, or it may be foraminal or far lateral position of the herniation of the nucleus pulposus. It may occur even after strain. In addition to the prolapse of the nucleus pulposus, internal derangement of the disc may also take place, like this central, foraminal, or far lateral position. So it is usually posterolateral aspect. Now prolapse of the nucleus pulposus reaches the adjacent or presses upon the adjacent nerve roots, and which gives rise to pain, and that radiates along the course or distribution of the nerve. And such type of pain along the course of the sciatic nerve, it is known as a sciatica. Now this prolapse occurs most frequently in the lower lumbar region. It is also common in the lower cervical region from 5th to 7th cervical vertebra. Now movements of the vertebral column between the adjacent vertebrae occur simultaneously at all the three joints connecting them. Movements between the two vertebrae is slight. However, when the movements between the several vertebrae are added together, total range of the movements become considerable. So movements are those of the flexion and extension, lateral flexion, and certain amount of rotation. So range of movement difference in different part of the vertebral column, and this is influenced by the thickness and flexibility of the intervertebral disc and also by the orientation of the articular facets. So flexion and extension occur frequently in the cervical and lumbar region, but not in the thoracic region, while rotation is free in the thoracic region and restricted in the cervical and lumbar region. So here we discuss completion of the vertebral joints. So I hope you understood very well. Thank you.